Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Georgette Greenlee. I'm Secretary of the Board. We are going to begin our Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee meeting for the CTA Transit Board. Director Jakes.
Strategic plan. No, okay, all right, we're good.
Good
morning. I would like to call to order
My name is
the July
Georgette
12th,
Greenlee. I'm Secretary of the
2023
Board.
meeting
We are
of
going
the
to be
Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Georgette, would you please call the roll?
Director Ja. Here. Director Ortiz. Here. Director Jakes.
Here.
Chairman Barclay.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Lee is going to be absent today. Director Jakes, we do have a quorum.
Okay. Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of June 16th, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Director Shaw. Yes. Director Ortiz. Yes. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion passes. Approve the minutes.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine. Gotta unmute yourself, Jeremy.
Sorry. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I'll walk through the May results as well as year to date. For May, we see a positive trajectory on both fare and pass totals. So fare and pass total line is $1.7 million better than budget. We see reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, and non-fare box totals coming in $700,000 better than expected. So for the month of May, we see total revenues positive by $2.4 million, and we're $4.5 million better than May of 2022. With regard to our year-to-date numbers, on the next page, we see fare and pass totals coming in almost $6 million better than budget of 5.9. Reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, and non-fare box totals coming in over $4 million better than expected. So overall, for the year, through the first 5 months of the year, we're $10 million, 10.1 better than budget, and $23.2 million better than the same period last year. For our expenses, we continue to see a positive trajectory here as well. For labor, we see favorability a little over $5 million, albeit this has come down as our hiring efforts have ramped up. Materials coming in essentially flat, but slightly down to budget. Fuel and power continue to be positive. Provisions for injuries and damages coming in as expected. Security services is unfavorable due to timing of invoices as well as ramped up efforts with regard to security. And other expenses are coming in positive by $2.6 million. So overall, for the month of May, we're over $8 million of positive favorability. On the next page, you see the year-to-date expenses. Again, a similar form on each of the lines. So dropping to the bottom here, we see total operating expenses favorable to budget by over $47 million on a year-to-date basis. With regard to our public funding, we see sales tax for March coming in positive by $1.8 million, albeit this is slightly below what we saw in January and February. PTF for June came in positive by $1.6 million. The RET for May, the real estate transfer tax, as the summer buying season started to heat up, we see some positive favorability there, which is a difference in trend from what we saw in the first portion of the year. PTF for RET came in negative for June. So overall, for the month, our monthly collections are $3.6 million better than budget. With regard to year-to-date public funding, again, we see positive favorability on sales tax and on PTF. Negative variance, as we've talked about in prior months, with regard to the real estate transfer tax and how higher interest rates have had an effect, a dampening effect on real estate sales. But overall, for the year, through the collections through May here, in June for public transportation funds, we're essentially flat but $200,000 favorable. On the next page, you see the federal relief funding draws. We see about $24 million of draws for the month. That means that we've now drawn about 47.7% of the total allocation, which means that we have a little over 1.1 billion remaining. Based on the trends that we've seen, and our expectation is that these funds should last us through 2025 and into early 2026. On the next page, you see our commodities purchases. For fuel, we now have locked in where we need to be for 23, 4, and 5 at 75% of those volumes. And we've now made a selective purchase with regard to 2026 of 10%. For power, we have an RFI that's going out on the street for additional power purchases in the future. And with regard to natural gas, we were able to lock in at favorable prices the 2026 volume. So now we're locked in for where we need to be for 23, 4, and 5, and 6 now. So that concludes my report. I'm glad to answer any questions with regard to May results or year to date.
Jeremy, thank you. Once the draws are completed, you said by 2025, no later than 2026, correct?
Based on current projections, we're expecting those federal relief funds to last us through 25 and into early 26.
Okay, so were there any conversations being had about what's going to happen after? Yes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So just give me a brief synopsis of it, so we'll know where we're looking at in the future.
Jeremy,
Absolutely.
why don't you let me take this one? It's because it's actually some additional information for the board. There are a number of efforts underway to address the fiscal cliff that's not only impacting CTA, but also impacting Metro and Pace. So we're all facing the same challenge. The RTA is working towards a strategy around promoting options to address our funding shortfall, and have put together a promotional and lobbying activity around those efforts directly. But just as importantly, the MPO in our region, CMAP, has been tasked by the state legislature to come back to them at the end of this year with recommendations on how we should move forward and what the options may be for addressing the funding challenge that we're facing. CMAP in particular wants to come to the board and give a presentation to them at an upcoming board meeting. And so that'll be coming on the agenda in the near future. So you'll get a chance to hear from them about what they're working on and what their proposals are. CTA staff have been involved in all these conversations in terms of working through what our thoughts are around what folks are working on, so on and so forth. And in addition, we obviously have been working directly on making sure that we're making the case for what CTA is going to need and ultimately what we're going to try to achieve in terms of the funding shortfall. One of the things that I have been starting to talk more about, and you're going to hear more about this, particularly budget process for next year. I should point out that the budget itself is going to be what we refer to as a no drama budget. Sure. In that we're not contemplating any service cuts or fare increases or anything like that. We're going to continue to make the investments that we have been making to try to get our ridership back. But we're at a point in time right now where we have the ability to have a very real conversation about what we want the future of public transportation to look like in this region. And part of what I want that dialogue to involve is not just what we need to fill our gap, to keep doing the same thing that we have always done, but to have a conversation about what we need to actually continue to improve our transportation system to really make it on par with what are considered world-class transportation systems around the globe. And when I say that, as you know, we traditionally compare CTA to what we refer to as our peer agencies. Those agencies tend to be New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. I want us to be on par with, comparable with New York, Madrid, London, Paris, Hong Kong. Those are considered in my industry world-class transit systems in that they provide a level of service, a frequency of service, a quality of service that ultimately is driving not only increased ridership on their system, but also increased economic development and growth. It's my firm belief that a world-class city should have a world-class transit system, and the two need to work in conjunction with each other. So we have this somewhat unusual, unique situation where an external factor has completely disrupted the business model that ultimately ran public transportation.
Right.
It's a time to reimagine that, not just take the same model and put it in there and patch it up and keep running again and hoping that as a result of that, you're going to see improvement in what we do, but really take this opportunity to have a real conversation about what it is that we need to ultimately run this, how we can get to the point where we can do that. What are the tools that can help us help ourselves, give us more flexibility around the things that we can ultimately use to generate the type of revenue and subsidies that can support the type of investments that we want to make. And obviously, of course, come to some resolution about how the funding should flow into this region to support public transportation as a whole. So it's going to be an interesting year coming up. There's going to be a lot of conversation going on about a lot of things to do. We're going to be, I assure you, at the front and center of all those conversations, but we're also going to be putting out a vision of what CTA thinks we should be doing that we hope will also capture the imaginations of all of our stakeholders and our elected officials and really drive a conversation to a much better option than what we have right now.
Well, President Carter, I think that's great. You know, reimagining CTA, great marketing tool. Yeah, great marketing tool. So thank you. So when is CMAP planning to?
It'll be in the next month or two. It's coming up very soon. They have to make some decisions by the end of the year.
Mhm.
So, and they have requested an opportunity to meet with our board, and I told them that we would get that scheduled for them. So it may be as soon as our next board meeting.
Would they want to meet publicly or?
Publicly, yeah, they would come to a regular scheduled board meeting and present to the board.
Good. No further questions, Georgette.
Director Ja, any questions? No. Director Ortiz?
Thank you.
Director Miller?
I just want to ask President, so you're talking about not just back to pre-COVID, you're talking about going beyond that.
Way beyond. And not only in terms of service, but also in terms of fair policy and the other things that I know a lot of people talk about involving CTA. All of those things require money. And if we have the right amount of money, then we can do a lot of really good things that I think are both supportive of our communities and ultimately allow us to remove some of the barriers, particularly the financial barriers that many people face in terms of their ability to ride public transportation. You know, I believe that public transportation should be viewed as a civil right. Mobility is something that every person should have, regardless of their race, income, national origin, or anything like that. The problem that we've had in this country is that we've never really funded public transportation that way. We've never treated it as a governmental service like we treat police and fire and other things. Well, we have an opportunity to try to change that narrative, at least in the state of Illinois. And maybe, if we're lucky, be a national model for what we should be doing around public transportation as we move forward. And that's a big part of what I want to speak to over the course of the upcoming months and obviously leading into next year, when we have a much more detailed and robust conversation around what the future of funding is going to be for our entire system.
Thank you.
How open is the legislature to this vision beyond just meeting the need?
Well, I think it's going to be a process. We have to educate the legislature on what a world-class transit system actually looks like. We need to explain to them what the benefits are if you make the right investments into an organization like CTA and help them imagine what the possibilities are. What has happened historically is that we've had this sort of patchwork approach to how the legislature has looked at public transportation in general. And so, you know, over the years, we've gotten funding relief to support, you know, financial challenges that we had. And with that has come things like reduced fares for students or free fares for veterans, stuff like that. So the legislature has been sort of cherry picking various policy initiatives instead of having a holistic conversation about what it would really take in which all of these things could be addressed and what type of funding would it take to do that. I think that, given the magnitude of the shortfall that we're talking about, which is obviously much bigger than anything we've ever experienced before, it's the right time to have that bigger conversation because you're going to have to, in for a dime, in for a dollar. You're going to have to come up with the money to do this. Let's talk about how we come up with the money to do it the right way. And to me, this is a very unique opportunity that we have because it's been driven by something that was totally outside of our control. Historically, when we've gone to Springfield for money, it's been because of the normal challenges that we have faced in terms of our rising costs and revenues and subsidies not keeping up with those costs. But in this case, we had something that came in and just literally knocked us out. It had nothing to do with anything else that we were doing. And it created such a big hole that you got to rethink what you're going to do if you're going to sustain this. It is part and parcel of the conversation that we're having about what is the complete value of public transportation in a city like Chicago? How do you measure way beyond ridership? And this is all part of the same conversation in my mind, but it's going to require us to really, sit down with the state legislatures, explain to them what these opportunities are, discuss to them what the real vision for public transportation could be, and not just kind of cherry pick one or two things, but let's have a conversation about the sustainability of a public transportation system that can provide a level of service, quality of service, and the type of policy, fair policy in particular, that ultimately the community wants. And in order to do that, let me tell you what that's going to cost. Now, they may come back with something less than that, but at least they know what they weren't able to get. Right now, we've always just talked about in the context of, I've got a budget hole of X millions of dollars. I need to plug that hole. They're like, fine, we'll give you the ability to plug that hole. And then anything else that you do above and beyond that in terms of your system, that's on you to figure out. Well, you know what? That may not necessarily be the brightest way for us to approach this conversation. So if we as the transportation experts aren't the ones who have this conversation with the elected officials, who is? We're the ones who know what's going on in all these cities. We are the ones who understand what a real world-class transit system looks like. And we have the obligation to make sure our elected officials understand what that is. And then they'll make whatever decisions they feel they can make based on the understanding of what they could potentially have.
Thank you.
All right. Director Jakes, if there are no further questions, you can proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing free rides on the first day of school for Chicago Public Schools. Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. And today I present for your consideration an ordinance authorizing free fares for all school-age children and the adults accompanying them on the first day of school in 2023 and 2024. This is effective on the first day of school in 23, which is currently scheduled for August 21, and on the date to be determined later for the start of the 2024 school year. Free rides will be given between 5:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m., which are the normal hours that student reduced fares are valid on CTA. Although the program coincides with the first day of school for Chicago Public Schools, all school-age children and an accompanying adult may ride free on that date. CTA began providing this program in 2011, and the program supports Chicago Public Schools' efforts to boost attendance on the first day of school and set the tone for the upcoming school year. For the first day of school in 2023, CTA has partnered with Butcher Boy Cooking Oils to serve as a sponsor to offset a portion of the costs of the free ride. This is our third straight year partnering with the Chicagoland-based woman-owned company for the first day of school free ride program. The ordinance authorizes the president to accept sponsorships for the 2024 program. This concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Jeremy, I want to make sure that we heard you correctly. It's not just for Chicago Public School students. It's also opened up to parochial schools and private schools. So just students in general, but the tag is Chicago Public Schools, correct?
That's correct, because it coincides with the actual first day of school for CPS. That's why it's positioned as such. But as you indicated, it's open for all students and any accompanying adult on that day.
Okay, thank you.
Director Ja, any questions?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No, thank you for allowing this to continue and making sure that there's a sponsor as well, so that it helps on our end. So thank you.
Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second?
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? Director Jakes, we may now proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a locker location license agreement with Amazon.com Services Limited Liability Corporation to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers. Jeremy?
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I present for your consideration an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Amazon for the operation of Amazon delivery lockers and CTA stations. Amazon currently operates 4 locker locations and CTA stations under a pilot program that was authorized by the board in June of 2020. This agreement will allow Amazon to continue to operate the 4 existing locations and also permit the installation of additional lockers with Amazon and CTA staff approval. The agreement is for a period of 3 years with 2 one-year options. Amazon will pay CTA a monthly fee of $50 for each location. They will also be responsible for all costs associated with installation and maintenance of the lockers. And the lockers provide an amenity to CTA customers who are able to conveniently pick up or return their Amazon packages as part of their CTA trip. The lockers also provide positive benefits to the region by reducing congestion and emissions from delivery vehicles, and the lockers are also outfitted with accessibility functions. This concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
I have no questions, Georgia.
Director Miller, do you have any questions? Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Ortiz?
None.
Director Ja? Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second?
Director Ja?
Present.
Director Ja are you going to be recusing yourself from this vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 6.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Board of Education of the City of Chicago for the sale and use of Venture cards and tickets for Chicago Public Schools. Jeremy?
Thank you. And good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. And today, for your consideration, I present a proposal for a renewal of the IGA between Chicago Public Schools, CPS, and CTA. This IGA covers the sale and distribution of Ventra Fair Media to CPS. Through this IGA, CPS purchases reloadable CPS student Venture cards and Ventra tickets. Student Venture cards are available for purchase at CPS schools, and parents or guardians may load value to these cards to fund their child's transportation to and from school. And the Ventra tickets are purchased by CPS special programs to provide transportation to and from various CPS programs. CPS is charged the pass-through cost for Venture cards and tickets, which is currently $1.23 per Venture card and 24 cents per Ventra ticket. Renewal of this IGA allows CTA to continue to provide cost-effective transportation for students getting to and from classes, as well as extracurricular activities and classes. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
I have no questions, Georgia.
Director Miller, do you have any questions?
Question?
Chairman Barclay?
Question.
Director Ortiz?
None.
Director Ja?
No questions.
There are no further questions. Director Jakes?
Yeah, now I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So move.
Second?
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now move on to agenda item number 7.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a sublease between Sterling Racine LLC and Ship Bob Inc. for property located at 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago. Jeremy?
Director Jakes, I believe that the presenter for this will be Bill Mooney.
Bill?
Good morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a sublease between Sterling Racine LLC and Ship Bob Inc. for property located at 120 North Racine Avenue. On August 12, 2015, the Transit Board approved a 10-year lease with Sterling Racine LLC for 84,879 square feet on the first and second floors of the CTA-owned building at 120 North Racine. On February 14th, 2018, the board approved a 2-year sublease between Sterling Racine LLC and Ship Bob Inc., with the sublease being amended multiple times since, the latest per ordinance number 022-006 in January of 2022. Sterling Racine has requested CTA's consent to amend the current sublease with Ship Bob, extending the term of the sublease through July 31st, 2024. Sterling Racine will continue to be responsible for all rent and expenses as set forth in the lease agreement, including its proportionate share of the building operating expenses and all applicable taxes and utility fees. Sterling Racine is required to obtain CTA's consent prior to subleasing, which cannot be unreasonably withheld. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this item.
I have no questions.
Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
There are no further questions. Director Jakes.
I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So move.
Second.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Ja.
Yes.
The motion passes. Director Jakes, we may now move on to agenda item number 8, and I believe our presenter will also be Bill Mooney.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Turner Construction Company for property located under the elevated structure between Nelson Street and Berry Avenue. Bill?
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Turner Construction Company for CTA property located between Nelson Street and Berry underneath the red, purple, and brown line tracks. Turner Construction Company has requested the use of approximately 2,201 square feet of CTA property for the storage of materials such as staging toilets, office trailers, and storage boxes. CTA and Turner have agreed to a 20-month license agreement set to commence on July 17th, 2023, and ending on March 16th, 2025, with a monthly license fee of $1,816.83. Either party may terminate the license agreement upon 30 days' notice for any reason whatsoever, and the agreement requires Turner to indemnify the CTA and maintain insurance for the benefit of Turner and CTA may terminate the agreement immediately if the area is needed for operational purposes. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this item.
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Ja.
Questions.
There are no further questions. Director Jakes.
I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We'll now take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Ja.
Yes.
Motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now move on to agenda item number 9.
Our next order of business today is the review of contracts number A1, transit operations. I have no questions.
Director Ja, do you have any questions? Director Ortiz,
None.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes, we may now proceed to contracts number B1 through B4.
Our next order of business today is the review of contract number B1. Now, we're going through B1 through B7 or B1 through B4?
B1 through B4, Director Jakes.
Okay. So B1 through B4. Regarding infrastructure, contract award for infrastructure, I have no questions.
Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Ortiz, Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes, we may now proceed to contracts number H1 through H2.
Excuse me, we still have B5 to address.
Oh, there. Thank you, Kent.
Welcome.
Director Jakes, we do have contract 5, 6, and 7. Wasn't sure which typo was the right typo. Now we know. Thank you very much.
So our next order of business is to review the contract B5 through 7. And I have no questions.
Director Ja,
No question.
Director Ortiz,
None.
Chairman Barclay, Director Miller, Director Jakes, we now may proceed to contract numbers H1 through H2.
All right, our next order of business today is a review of contract number H1 through H2, contract awards for administration. No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Ortiz, Director Ja, Director Jakes. There are no further questions.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 10 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We'll now take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay, Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Ja.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Since there is no further business to come up before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We will now take the roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion to approve the omnibus passes. You may now proceed to agenda item number 10.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes, Director Ortiz,
Yeah.
Director Ja. Motion to adjourn passes.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for July 12th, 2023. Georgette, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Director Miller,
Here.
Director Jakes,
Here.
Director Ortiz,
Here.
Director Ja, Chairman Barclay,
Here.
Chairman Barclay, Director Lee is absent, but we do have a quorum with 5 members present.
Thank you. Our first order of business is public comments. Georgette?
Mr. Chairman, we have 4 public commentators this month. Bill Morton, Trudy Leong, and Pat Gibbons are appearing in person. We also have a public comment that was submitted by John Paul Jones for distribution to the Transit Board directors. Are each of our public commentators here? Mr. Chairman, it appears that none of them are here.
Thank you. Our next item of business on the agenda is our president's report, which will be given by our President Dorval Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, good morning. When you lead a group of hardworking, committed, and dedicated employees, as I do, it raises the standard for excellence within your organization. As a result, we frequently have individuals who do a great job and consistently operate at a high level throughout their careers. They recognize their outstanding work as simply doing their job. So many of the transit professionals in the CJ family recognize excellence as the floor and not the ceiling. On occasion, these same individuals are called to go a level above, often by happenstance. Other times, they are required to utilize judgment or to make decisions that will affect the fate and maybe even the lives of others. 2 such employees have joined us here today and will be honored with an employee commendation in recognition of their heroism and extraordinary professionalism. Joining us today are Nicole Johnson, a rapid transit operator working out of Howard Terminal, who has been with us for about 1.5 years, and Brandon Burkia, a 3.5-year CTA veteran bus operator working out of the Forest Glen garage. Operator Johnson, please stand to be recognized. First of all, may I call you Nicole?
Yes.
Thank you. On June 13th, 2023, Nicole was operating a northbound Red Line train approaching Garfield Red Line station. Nicole didn't know this, but shortly before her train neared the station, a man had fallen onto the tracks and had crouched beneath the platform. Just before her train reached the station, the man stood and Nicole saw him in the right-of-way. What happened next was harrowing. And before I tell you the rest of the story, I should mention that Nicole had only qualified to operate a train days before this incident occurred. Wow. So you don't have to be a rail operator to guess that quickly stopping a train with multiple rail cars isn't easy. Not only is it completely unlike stopping a car, but keep in mind that Nicole had to consider the safety of the customers on board her train while hoping to avoid contact with the man on the tracks. Recognizing that she only had seconds to work, she quickly applied the brakes. Miraculously, thanks to Nicole's vigilance and attention, the train barely made contact with the man, only nudging him. Her attentiveness and her swift action helped him to avoid injury and most likely saved his life. It is easy for those who've never done the job to believe that our rail operators are simply moving trains and customers from station to station. Until you have done the job, however, it can be difficult to put yourself in their shoes and understand the level of vigilance necessary to safely do their jobs. In Nicole's case, she saw a human life in jeopardy, and she knew the decision she made could determine whether someone was going to live or die. Nicole, thank you for your vigilance and professionalism. Keep up your very good work.
Thank you.
Operator Barrico, will you please stand up? And may I call you Brandon? Absolutely. Thank you. On April 15, 2023, Brandon was driving a bus eastbound at Washington and Wabash with only one passenger aboard, a young woman preparing to alight the bus at the next stop. Brandon observed a group of approximately 100 to 200 young people in the street. He attempted to go around them, but was unable to do so, in part because one young man literally jumped in front of the bus to stop it, putting his own life in danger for no reason at all. As Brandon came to a complete stop, several individuals climbed aboard the roof while others started to kick and throw objects at the bus, causing damage to the driver's side window, the driver's windshield, and the front passenger doors. Brandon contacted the control center to request assistance. Shortly thereafter, someone sprayed an unknown irritant through the driver's side window from outside the bus, making contact with Brandon's left eye and ear. Soon afterwards, several individuals gained access to the bus's front doors, boarding and alighting the bus. Despite the substance having been sprayed in his face, Brandon didn't attempt to leave. Instead, he had the passenger move to the rear of the bus and stood between her and anyone else who came onto the bus. Excuse me, I get a little emotional just thinking about this.
Yeah.
And I've seen the video, so I know how dangerous this was. In a very difficult situation, despite the injuries that he had sustained, Brandon kept his head, remained composed, and didn't further aggravate the situation. He never engaged the crowd, no matter what happened. No matter who came on the bus, Brandon stood between them and the female passenger and those individuals until the situation was clear. His focus and resolve helped to ensure that the incident did not get any worse. Brandon, I cannot imagine how you felt at that moment, but you need to know that I am very sorry for what happened to you, and I would wish that something like that should never happen to anyone else again. But I also want to applaud you for your bravery and your professionalism. You never abandoned your bus or the customer that was reliant on you. You didn't fight. You didn't put yourself in peril. You didn't risk your own safety or the safety of anyone else. By any standard, you comported yourself in a way that goes beyond simply standing your ground. You showed a level of courage that all of us can only strive to achieve. I admire your composure, and I'm very happy that you made it through the moment and that you are with us here today. And I certainly hope that you continue to wear that CTA uniform. Thank you so much for your service to CTA. To both of you, you've been with us a short time. I look forward to you having long careers at CTA. You are exactly the type of high quality professionals that I want working in this great agency. Thank you both very much. Mr. Chairman, at this time, if you or the board would like to make any comments, please feel free. And afterwards, I would like to invite our honorees up to receive their commendations and to join us for a picture.
I want to say thank you for all of the work that you did to prepare yourself to do the work that you do. And I know that hasn't just been, behind a textbook or on a computer, but it's probably all of the personal work that you've done outside as well and for your family and our community. So thank you so much for being yourself, for being your whole self when you're out as part of your work. Thank you.
Nicole and Brandon. So, how are you?
I'm good now.
Okay. Brandon?
Good enough.
Okay, so you've gone to I don't know if it's therapy or to go to make sure that you're okay and having to see what you saw and do what you did?
I
Or
didn't.
let me ask, what did you do to start the process of being okay?
I'm not really a talker.
Okay.
I'm more of a journal type person. So I journal my experience down. And I asked to be off the train just for a couple of days, just to get my mental together. But after a few days, I was ready to get back on. and I had to get back on a red line so I can experience, so I could go through it. And I can, how can I say this? I can get over that fear of going through that again. So I was, after a couple of days, I was okay. I was okay.
Brandon?
That's quite a lousy answer. I just came back to work.
Okay. I know sometimes how we have to deal with trauma. We have to jump back into it, but I just wanted to make sure that you two of you were okay, and thank you so much. And I really pray that you never have to go through that again.
I don't have to do that again.
So thank you.
Thank you. I don't think any words can describe how grateful we are to be part of the CTA family. And every time we hear, we respect you, we wouldn't be here without what you do every day, in and out, and putting your lives in danger. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So thank you so much.
I just joined, want to say thank you and keep up the good work. And today to acknowledge that you've considered part of your job, we consider you heroes. Thank you.
I would join in, both Brandon and Nicole. You are a hero.
Yeah.
You represent this agency well. Your professionalism, your demeanor, how you handle, potentially dangerous situations. That's what we need. But you're also representative and reflective of thousands of other people who work for this agency, who have faced adverse conditions from time to time from the public. And so I just want to thank you and let you know that we appreciate you for your efforts and for your hard work and your diligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members. At this point in time, I'd like to have our employees come up to receive a commendation. We'll start first with Nicole. Nicole, will you come up, please? We're going to take a picture and give you a certificate. Could I also have the 308 representative come up, as well as Jeannie and Don Bonds? So come back here. And let's see you. What is it? What is welcome to join in the picture? That's why I brought him back. That's why I brought him up here. Can you stay? Brandon, can you come up? And AJ and Keith Hill, can you come up? Keith is the head of ATU for the 241. 241. Who is? Keith Hill. Oh, okay, right here. He's the head of local 241. AJ, who is one of the general managers of the garage that Brandon works on. Okay, all right. Oh, yeah, get over here. Thank you. You know, the job you guys do in all cities. That's my son. Well.
He also has an uncle that was a 30+ year. 30 year. 39.5. And then strong. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to recognize two of our outstanding employees today. While we've honored two outstanding employees already today, I obviously am proud that I now have the opportunity to recognize other staff who've been doing a great job in CTA. As I indicated, CTA's family of employees are nationally recognized as being among the best outstanding professionals in the public transit industry. They display their talents day in and day out, and their dedication and commitment were on full display over the last couple of weekends when we had to face the challenge of not only supporting the 2023 Chicago Pride Parade, but also the first ever NASCAR Chicago Street Race. It's easy to take the planning, precision, and execution of CTA's role in these events for granted, but our planning, operations, and infrastructure departments are key participants operating in the background to support these events. Our staff managed the delivery of additional service to accommodate increased ridership, bus reroutes around street closures, and increased crowds aboard buses, trains, and at all of our rail stations. This was all done while remaining alert and ready for adjusting to the unforeseen circumstances that could arise, as seen in the case of the heavy rains that we encountered during the NASCAR weekend. Without CTA's engagement, participation, and deft execution throughout the process, these events cannot happen. I want to acknowledge the many frontline employees and managers who worked so hard to help these events be a success. What you should understand is that these employees were working 24/7, literally 2 weekends in a row, to make sure that we successfully delivered the services that were expected of our customers in our communities. We talk about the great work that's being done by outstanding employees, but I also want to acknowledge the good work that's being done in service to professionals in training. Last month, I shared with this body that CTA is hosting 225 One Summer Chicago interns this year. It is the largest class of high schoolers we have ever hosted as a part of this program. I think it's important, however, to give you a more in-depth look at what those young people will be doing and to hear about the experiences from an actual participant. And there is no better person to facilitate that conversation than the individual who is entrusted with guiding that program. At this time, I would like to invite Geisha Esther, the Vice President of Training and Workforce Development, to come forward, address the board to provide additional background on this wonderful program, which all of you got a small sampling of in the picture that we just took right before the board meeting. Geisha is joined today by Eric Danso, a One Summer Chicago intern that is working with us for the second summer and who will share his own experiences with the board directly.
Thank you, President Carter. Good morning, Chairman, board members, President Carter. As you've heard, my name is Geisha Esther, and I'm the Vice President of Training and Workforce Development here at the wonderful CTA. And I have with me today a second-year One Summer Chicago intern, Mr. Eric Danso, who will speak with you after the presentation. So my goal today is to give you a program overview. Next slide, please. As President Carter said, last week he told you that we were expecting 225. That was our goal for this year. We exceeded that goal. This year we have 237 CTA High School One Summer Chicago interns. They're here for a 7-week hybrid internship program. This year's theme, we have a theme every year. This year's theme is Transport to Excellence. We have our interns here 5 days a week, 25 hours each week. The rate of pay for our interns is $15.40, and they receive the best thing, which is free transportation for the summer. So they're able to navigate the city and explore the city for free with their employee ID. We know access is important, and because we have a hybrid experience, we wanted to make sure that our interns were prepared for this experience. So we, CTA, issued iPads for all of our One Summer Chicago interns who needed them, as well as internet access and telework supplies. So we wanted to make sure that they were ready for this year's theme of Transport to Excellence. Next slide, please. So the purpose of our Transport to Excellence theme is that we want to equip our interns with the skills they need to cultivate a positive professional experience this year. The program will prepare our interns for their interest into the workforce and set them on a path of excellence. Next slide, please. So each year we play up our routes, our different routes for our rail, and we have routes to success. So our Green Line route is our route to workforce, and it really was our orientation week. So our interns were able to have their orientation kickoff, where all 237 were in one place like this morning, really learning about CTA and what our program was about. We distributed their telework equipment. They received training around professionalism and communication etiquette, as well as we had some team building opportunities with our CTA cohort conductors, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So our yellow route is our route to career pathways, and that's our route where we teach our interns about careers here at the Chicago Transit Authority, because what we know is that we want our interns to go off and be successful and finish high school and finish college and find their ways back here at the CTA, right? Like I did so many years ago. I am honored to say that I was a high school intern as well as a college intern here at the Chicago Transit Authority. So we are cultivating Eric to do the same. And so during our route pathways, they learned about human resources, our marketing team. They learned about the training and instruction in the career and leadership department and training and workforce development. And they also learned about our control center. So 3 key areas in our organization that we want to spark their interest for our organization. Next slide, please. The red line is our route to service. We know that service is important, and we participate in the Mayor's Office, Chicago Youth Service Corps every year. And there are some guiding principles that we want to make sure that our interns learn about how they can shape Chicago, how they learn to lead, and how they elevate their voice and celebrate themselves and others. So this year, our interns will be participating in a beautification project at the Chicago Avenue Garage, where we're going to beautify the west side of Chicago and really provide a place for our employees who so deserve it because they're moving the city. So our interns will participate in the service project there. Next slide, please. Our pink line is our route to professional development, where our interns really focus on their own personal and professional development. We have interns in a cohort that are doing modern photography that Eric will talk about a little bit later. We have Learn to Lead curriculum where they do professional development. And we also take them on field trips. This year, they're going to the Museum of Science and Industry. We also have a route to higher education. We partner with Olive Hardy College, where our interns can earn college credit by participating in courses at Olive Hardy. So we have cohorts of students that are taking Criminal Justice 102, as well as Art 196. So they will leave our program with 3 credit hours to prepare for their college.
Great.
Next slide, please. Our purple line is our route to wellness, which we know is very important, right? Our mental as well as our physical health. We have partnered with our CTA wellness team to offer physical wellness opportunities and programs, as well as we have procured the help of one of our contractors to help do some mental health training as well. So some of our courses has been Finding Your Resilience, Not All Stress is Good Stress, as well as an Emotional Intelligence series. So we want to make sure that our students are very well-rounded. Next slide, please. Our brown line is our route to financial freedom. And as a matter of fact, today is a big day for our interns. They're receiving their first paycheck. So we want to make sure that they are prepared for those paychecks they're going to get today. And so what we talk about, we have the Economic Awareness Council come in and work with us to teach our interns about banking and direct deposit, as well as budgeting, saving, and investing, because we want them to be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor, but we also want them to save. So we make sure that that happens. There's also a platform, the My Shy, My Future platform, that offers courses. So part of their hybrid experience is they're able to take financial literacy courses on that platform to learn more, and it's self-directed. Next slide, please. So this is a big program, right? And we don't do it alone. We have lots of partners. I talked about whether our partners help us with recruitment, CPS, the CTE, the trades education, Chicago Scholars, Accenture, Olive Hardy, I spoke about earlier, our Economic Awareness Council, Foster Progress, as well as Marwin and Hope Foundation, Nikki Health Consultant, Youth Guidance. And then last but not least, our newest partner this year is CASA. They have really been a great partner for us in our recruitment efforts this year. Next slide, please. Those are external partners. We also have an array of internal partners that make this happen. They're part of the secret sauce, right? So human resources, information technology, payroll, we talked about the wellness team, bus instruction, our communication department. And then we have some of our interns that are serving on site, our second year interns, like Eric, have a work assignment here at CTA serving on site. And some of our departments that are supporting and mentoring those interns is our transit operations team, human resources, infrastructure, EEO, revenue and fair systems, diversity, general counsel, and our training and workforce development team. Next slide, please. I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce my team, right? I have the pleasure of coming before you and being the representative, but it takes a lot of us. And so I just want to acknowledge Kendra, Molly, and Dr. Bria. They are the team that really does this work and carries our team forward. Next slide, please. I said that I would mention our cohort conductors a little bit later. We have a great model. We utilize our college interns who are majoring in fields that are closely connected with serving our youth, like education fields or social service fields. And they serve as the cohort conductor for the cohorts. We think about having such a large group of 237 interns. We break them up in cohorts of 25 and 30. And their professional development is led by our college intern cohort conductors. So as you can see, those are our college interns, and we want to make sure that they have a robust experience in their college internship process as well. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to share a few pictures with you. We are in week 4, but this was our kickoff at Harold Washington College. You'll see that we had this big, robust kickoff with all of our students, and we introduced our Transport to Excellence theme. Next slide, please. And I mentioned that some of our interns are being mentored by some of our CTA employees. This was this year's intern and mentor meetup. It was a great opportunity for our interns to meet who their supervisor would be for the year and just have some activities to get to know each other. Next slide, please. And last but definitely not least, I want to introduce to you again, Mr. Eric Danso. He is a second year One Summer Chicago high school intern. He is in the red line cohort, and he wants to address the board if possible.
Thank you.
Eric?
Hello, good morning. My name is Eric Danso, and I am a Chicago Transit Authority One Summer Chicago high school intern in the red line cohort. This is my second summer working as a high school intern at the Chicago Transit Authority. I recently graduated from Lane Tech College Prep as a proud member of the class of 2023. I currently live in Uptown. I will attend the University of Pennsylvania, where I will major in chemistry and nutrition. My future career will be a doctor, or more specifically, a radiologist. I want to make an impact in Chicago and specifically reducing health disparities experienced by people of color. Last summer, I was a CTA OSC Marwin intern. That partnership provided me with my first opportunity to work with a camera that was not on a phone or tablet. It was a blast to delve into the world of art and photography. The CTA not only piqued my interest in art, it gave me the chance to have my photographs installed in the CTA University. This summer, however, I am a special projects intern working at CTA headquarters with the Second Chance program in the Training and Workforce Development Department. The Second Chance program helps provide justice-involved Chicago residents with the job skills and coaching needed to gain permanent employment. My responsibility is to audit personnel files to ensure that the CTA is in compliance with regulatory requirements. I know that filing may seem small, however, I know that I'm making a big impact on the city of Chicago and the Chicago Transit Authority. Chairman Barclay, board members, and President Carter, on behalf of my fellow 237 CTA OSC high school interns, college cohort conductors, and training workforce development staff, thank you for our internship experience and for showing us how valuable we are to Chicago, to the Chicago Transit Authority as we transport to excellence. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to present to you this morning.
Thank you, Geisha and Eric. I don't know if the board has any questions of them before we let them go, but Geisha, remind me, when we first started the One Summer Chicago program, how many students?
25 or
5. That gives you a sense of how big it has grown. I was mentioning to some of the board members that I keep giving Geisha a stretch goal each year, number of interns I want to see in the program. And as she pointed out to you, My stretch goal was 225 and she got to 237. So she's exceeding my expectations with this program, but it is foundationally one of the things that I am very proud of that we've established in this agency, and it has a lot to do with the leadership of Gisha, but also, as she indicated, the hard work and support of all the CTA employees who volunteer their time to support the cohort and to ensure that the kids have an enjoyable summer.
Great. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Gisha and Eric, for an excellent presentation. As you know, this is a wonderful program, as President Carter stated. It's near and dear to me because I started off as a summer intern more than 40 years ago.
But you're only 43. I don't know.
And so, when I see Eric, I see myself. And so, I told him when we were taking the photo this morning, I said, "Are you nervous?" And he said, "A little bit." I said, "You won't be nervous when you become the next mayor of Chicago." Well on his way. Enjoy your experience at Penn. You'll have a wonderful experience and bring back all the knowledge to help us here at CTA. Thank you so much.
Eric, you start school next month?
Yeah, August 29th is when the first day of school is.
Okay, well, let me just say, if you decide to join a fraternity, then it's out there now on behalf of President Carter and myself. One. File for fraternity. Eric, if you come back here with any other colors on, congratulations, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Friends backwards. Congratulations on your recent graduation. We wish you the very best, and we hope that everyone, all of the other interns have just the most wonderful experience. I know how much internships make a difference in everyone's lives. So thank you for continuing to lead forward, and we wish you the best this summer and then as you go on to college.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the best and come back. I want you to come back here, just like this is the second time. We want to make it second plus.
Yeah, well, now he's ready to move into college intern. So.
Yeah.
Ms. Esther, congratulations to you as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
This is fabulous. I hope that this is a model that other agencies can use in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's great. So congratulations to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Appreciate it.
So as we support the future generations of CJ employees through our One Summer Chicago program, I also want to recognize the work that we're doing right now to grow our own workforce. We hosted 246 individuals attending our bus operator and mechanic job fair. This month, we will host another virtual hiring event. It will be our second disability awareness panel and job fair, which is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, July 26th. This event will be an open panel about job opportunities and working at CTA. We'll also host another on-site job fair on Friday, August 25th at the Malcolm X College on Chicago's West Side. As you can tell, we remain doggedly focused on increasing our workforce numbers and continuing to remain focused on bringing aboard and training many new employees as possible to fill all the important vacancies that we have. I've talked about the 5 pillars of the Meeting the Moment action plan, but the overarching theme has always been that we want to best serve the customers that are traveling on CTA vehicles with the resources we have and to attract riders back to CTA. As we've noted each week, we continue to see a trend of slow but steady increases in ridership, adjusting for seasonal activity like students going on summer break. Key indications of our progress include the fact that May 2023 was the best month for ridership since the pandemic. System set a new high for 2019 retention at 60% in May, with bus reaching 67% of 2019 ridership levels and rail reaching 53% of 2019 ridership levels. In addition, the week ending June 10th was our best ridership week since the pandemic at over 5.65 million rides. It is noteworthy that we're reaching these milestones because of increases in both peak and off-peak ridership. Office occupancy continues to increase, boosting the weekday commuter rides, The special event season is underway, which is helping to build our off-peak ridership. I should also note that the two special events also yielded record ridership. The Pride Parade was the second largest Sunday system-wide pandemic, and the NASCAR event had the second highest rail ridership of any Saturday this year. Keep in mind that was with the rain and everything else that we were dealing with. As you know, the Meeting the Moment scorecard has over time grown into an indispensable tool as part of our overall action plan. It has been key in ensuring transparency to our riding public and has evolved over time, growing from a simple monthly PDF report to now dynamic and interactive update, utilizing interactive data visualization. Today, I'm happy to announce that we are taking another step forward in the evolution of our scorecard. For years, we have published a static report of monthly performance metrics. Our performance management department has now created an expanded and interactive performance metrics dashboard that also incorporates Meeting the Moment scorecard and deliver a more comprehensive and useful tool with additional performance metrics. The one-stop shop performance metrics dashboard includes new items like updates on elevator and escalator outages and infrastructure and vehicle cleaning information. It also allows users to engage with the information to see performance on their rail lines and bus routes. Our performance management team developed this tool to provide employees, leadership, and most importantly, our riders with up-to-date information regarding our service. These tools not only help us get better, but ensure that our riders can hold us accountable. We'll talk more about the new public performance metrics. I would like to have Tom McCone, our Chief Administrative Officer, to provide an overview and answer any questions that you may have. Tom?
Thank you, President Carter, Chairman Barkley, members of the board. Good morning. So what I'd like to do is walk you through the performance dashboard that President Carter just described. What you'll see now is currently live on our website. We are on the performance metrics page of the website. The new interactive dashboard is right there in the middle of the page. We're going to pull it up in a larger format here so it fills the screen. And looking at this menu page, you'll see a lot of the overview of what's in the performance metrics scorecard. What you see here is the menu for 15 pages of metrics, incorporating the new metrics that were introduced as part of Meeting the Moment, providing further interactivity around some of the static metrics that we've been reporting for a while, and then also introducing some new metrics based on additional information that we now have available, and then also responding to customer interest in those areas. So what I'm going to do is walk through a couple of those pages to demonstrate the level of interactivity and information that we're providing. I'm not going to go through the entire scorecard. Certainly, you're welcome to do that. It is up on the website and others are. It's available for others to do that as well. So we're going to start by looking at the on-time metrics, and we're going to go to the rail on-time page. So as we click that, the data loads dynamically into the tool. You can see this is updated through the month of June. What we're displaying here at the top of the page is information that we previously only reported on the system level, and these are rail delays of 10 minutes or more. So this is impacting service performance, categorized by the various categories that we have for those delays. Below this, you see the slow zone mileage. So this is system-wide slow zone mileage. There is a link in there to the actual map, so you can look at the map of slow zone mileage. And the interactivity now that we're introducing is the ability to click on any given line and to see this information broken out by those lines. So if you click on the red line here, you'll see this information specifically for the red line. So you can see that, you can see what the trend is over time, and you can of course see how it compares to the system and to other lines. We can furthermore click into the blue line, right? And so we can see how this changes when we look at something like the blue line and get that level of interactivity so that our customers, our constituents can really see what's happening in detail across the lines that they're interested in and how that compares to system performance overall. We'll go to the next page, which is the system-wide and the line on-time performance. These are measures that were introduced as part of Meeting the Moment. We are looking at double headways and triple headways on the rail system. And what that means is if a train is scheduled and advertised to arrive every 10 minutes, but instead arrives in 20 minutes, that's a double headway. If it arrives in 30 minutes, that's a triple headway. So it's triple that scheduled time between trains or double that scheduled time between trains. You'll see at the top of this page, we have the system-wide performance, and then we've broken that down by each of the individual lines. So on one page, you can see the double headways, the triple headways, all broken down on a single page. Our users can hold us accountable, see how performance is across each of the lines they're interested in, see where that's going up or where that's going down, but all sort of relative to the system-wide measure that's provided at the top of the page, and then further making sure that we've incorporated this metric on an ongoing basis that was introduced as part of Meeting the Moment. As we go to the next page, we'll go from on-time performance to show another aspect of our service, which is vehicle performance. So this is looking at the efficiency of our vehicles. We're focusing first here on the bus side. So we've gone from rail, now we're looking at bus. And what you'll see at the top of the page is mean miles between breakdown or road call due to a maintenance defect. And we previously would report this on the system-wide level, and that's that line that you see across the middle of the page. Now we're providing interactivity so you can actually see that across each of the fleet series that we operate. So there's 5 different series of fleet that we're operating. Those are indicated by the numbers on the left-hand side. So for instance, our 1000 series fleet, and the makeup of that fleet is in the bottom right-hand side. So that's visibility into the up-to-date numbers of how many buses we have of each series, the count of them, the age, right? So the service year in which they entered service, and then the type, a 40-foot bus, a 60-foot bus, or an e-bus. So that as you interact with the data, you can see sort of why performance might be higher or lower for different series and sort of understand the impact of that by knowing sort of, okay, how old is this bus? When was it introduced? What type of bus is this? And then at the bottom of the page, we have overall fleet availability. And so that gives a metric, again, that we've reported over time, but that is relevant to service, which is what percentage of our fleet is available. I'm going to leave it there. There's 15 pages to explore. Certainly, we could spend a long time going through each metric, and I do expect that as the metrics go up and down over time, that we will be using this to talk about the investments that we're making and the improvements that we're making across the system. Importantly, at the end of the report, we still capture all the Meeting the Moment goals for 2023 and use that as a page to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to meeting those goals as well. I'll leave it here, turn it back over to you, President Carter, unless there are further questions.
Thank you, Tom. Before we take any questions, the other point that I want to make is that the document that Tom is showing you, we view as a living, breathing document. We'll continue to tweak and refine it to make sure that we're giving our customers the best understanding of what's going on with our service throughout our system. So, I'm a believer of you don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. And it was important for us to start to get this information out there with the understanding that there's still some things that we may do going forward that will help enhance and explain that data even more so far. With that, I'll turn it over to the board, to the chairman, to see if there are any questions that you have on top.
Any questions for any board members?
We went through it in detail and I love the reporting. It's really, really well done.
We're excited about it. Internally, what you're seeing here is a snapshot of a lot of the data that my team looks at literally every day that helps drive our understanding about what's going on in the system and how to best respond to the challenges that we face. But it is an opportunity for the public to get a better understanding of what they are experiencing on our system and giving them the tools to allow them to focus in on the areas of the system that may impact them most in their daily use of CTA, which I think is a great addition. The other point that I would make is that we have looked at similar types of approaches with other transit systems around the country. What our approach is very unique in that it's very much customer focused. And so it is data that we have captured and are presenting to our customers in a way that they will understand what it is that they're using. And as opposed to many systems which provide similar type of data, they use it in the context of how transit operations looks at things. So you'll see other agencies will talk about terminal departure time as a data point for public display. which is an important metric for us to understand because it impacts our overall schedule reliability, but to a customer, it really doesn't tell them much, as opposed to the data metrics that we're using here. So, part of the approach here is really making sure that we're not just identifying any data that we have, but we're identifying data that directly ties to the customer experience and ultimately gives the customer a better understanding of what they are experiencing as part of their commute or their use of CTA on a day-to-day basis.
Any other questions?
I'm done.
Thank you, Tom. Let me move on to e-buses. CTA has a commitment to move to an all-electric bus fleet by 2040. We are focused on making that a reality. I'm excited to advise the board that last month we were awarded a $25 million grant by the Department of Transportation's RAISE Discretionary Grant Program, which will be used to further electric bus operation expansion at the 95th Street Dan Ryan Terminal. We are extraordinarily grateful to the Biden-Harris administration for funding that, which will be a benefit to the electric bus operation, particularly on the south side of the city of Chicago. The funds will be used to make electrical upgrades at the 95th Street Rail Power Substation that will support 6 e-bus chargers that will be installed to support electric bus service at the 95th Street. They will also provide the infrastructure support in all electric bike stations. In addition, last month, following the board's vote allowing us to extend our contract with our electric bus manufacturer, we were happy to announce our plan to nearly double the size of our all-electric bus fleet with the purchase of 22 new all-electric buses. As I mentioned before, these new buses are key components of CTA's environmental equity strategy, and we will look to deploy them in a way that benefits the more vulnerable communities on the south and west side of Chicago, which are the most adversely impacted by higher rates of harmful pollutants. Last month, we also welcomed our new Citizen Advisory Board, who advised this board and provide valuable feedback regarding CTA issues, service, and policies. The appointment of this group ensures a diverse representation from across the CTA service area and includes representatives of community organizations, commercial and business groups, seniors, students, and others. Advisory groups are key to public agency success. In the same vein as our ADA Advisory Committee provides counsel to us on issues and perspectives vital to the disability community, so too will this group provide similar perspectives for citizens at large. It is especially encouraging for all of us that Chairman Barkley will be directly involved with this group and can participate in this useful exchange of thoughts, concerns, and ideas. Finally, I would like to provide the board with an update on the improvements we are making as part of the first phase of the Forest Park Branch Rebuild Project, which is a multi-year, multi-phase investment program that will allow us to reconstruct the entire Forest Park branch of the Blue Line and make it 100% accessible. I will note that when Tom was showing you our scorecard, when he clicked on the blue line, you saw a dramatic increase in the percentage of slow zones, a big part of which is focused on the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line. The Forest Park branch of the Blue Line is the last branch of CTA's system to go through any sort of a rebuild or rehab, and that's long overdue to address that. So we are beginning that process with the work that we're going to start later this month. In fact, this project kicks off on Sunday, July 23rd, continues through Saturday, October 7th. Our Chief Infrastructure Officer, Bill Mooney, will discuss the project benefits and our strategy to accommodate our passengers more with them during the construction report. But I want to note that this project is a textbook example of a little pain now will provide a greater benefit later. In recent years, we've been investing billions into our system, doing the kind of work that requires an extended construction period or that results in temporary station or rail line closures. Throughout these investments, we've made every effort to communicate the impact to riders, to provide alternative options, including dedicated free shuttle buses or other CTA service. These projects feel disruptive, and they are, but they are necessary for us to move forward and will benefit our customers for decades to come. Members of the board, if you have any questions, I am now happy to answer them. That completes my report for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carter, for the update. We're almost at the end of the first year of meeting the moment. We are appreciative of the progress that your team has made. It's a lot of information, you know, a scorecard that governs yourselves, and it makes you transparent. And for the public to see, and everyone to see, all citizens of Chicago, doing good, where we can be doing better. So we appreciate that. We've come a long way in a year. We've all seen changes, safety, security, you know, the timeliness of all those things. Basically expose all that to the public so they can see that and also see the progress that your team has made. So we're very appreciative of that. We know there's a lot of work ahead of us, got a lot of work to do to get to the pre-pandemic level, but I think we are moving in the right direction. So thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Then thank you, President Carter. Appreciate that. Our next order of business is approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 16, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay, the motion to approve the minutes of June 16, 2023 passes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is executive session. It's my understanding, Kent, that there's no executive session today.
Correct, Chairman, no executive session today.
Our next order of business is board matters. Okay.
Yes, Chairman Barclay, we have one board matter on the agenda today to approve an ordinance designating Sisavon Baker as the Chicago Transit Authority's ethics officer and designating Kent Ray as interim ethics officer.
May I have a motion to approve an ordinance designating Sisavon Baker as the Chicago Transit Authority's ethics officer and designating Kent Ray interim ethics officer?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion to approve the Sisavon Baker as the ethics officer and Kent Ray as the interim ethics officer passes.
Thank you. And I just note for the record that Ms. Baker is here. Thank you. Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Jakes.
The committee met earlier this morning and approved the June 16, 2023 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee reviewed 5 ordinances. An ordinance authorizing free rides on the first day of school for Chicago Public Schools. An ordinance authorizing a locker location license agreement with Amazon.com Services LLC to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers. An ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Board of Education for the City of Chicago for the sale and use of Ventra cards and tickets for Chicago Public Schools. An ordinance authorizing an amendment to a sublease between Sterling Racine LLC and Ship Bob Inc. for property located at 120 North Racine Avenue in Chicago. An ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Turner Construction Company for property located under the elevated structure between Nelson Street and Berry Avenue, Chicago, red, purple, brown lines. The committee also reviewed 10 contracts. Committee approved and recommended for board approval 5 ordinances and the 10 contracts. Committee placed the ordinance and the 10 contracts on the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Barclay.
I would entertain a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Jakes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We'll take a roll call vote to approve the omnibus. Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes.
Our next order of business is the construction report from Bill Mooney.
May I interrupt one second? I think we need a separate motion to approve the recommendation from finance to approve the Amazon contract.
Okay. And next, I will entertain a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing a locker location license agreement with Amazon to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Miller. Director Ja, for the record, is recusing herself from this vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
The motion to approve the Amazon locker location ordinance passes.
Our next order of business is a construction report from Bill Mooney, our Chief Infrastructure Officer, and Juan Pablo Prieto, our Director of Diversity Program.
Good morning, Chairman and Directors. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. As always, I'm joined by Juan Pablo Prieto. This month, we are also going to be joined by Brian Steele, our Vice President of Communication, and Molly Poppy, our Chief Innovation Officer, who will help us talk a little bit about the major project we have coming up on the Forest Park branch and all the efforts we're making around that. But we'll start where we normally do, our CDOT Lake Damon stations. Lots of work been going on site. They continue to build up layers of the core tower that will allow us to make access to the new elevated platforms, as well as the bridge that connects both sides of the right-of-way. They have started laying the foundation and the floor for the new station, which is really exciting to see. Last month, I showed you a lot of the work in preparation for that, and we'll move to some of those photos. Here in the first photo, you can see them installing the new steel. Over the last couple of months, I've shown you the rehabbing of the existing steel. This is new steel columns that go on new foundations that will ultimately be supporting the platform. Next slide. Here is that top layer of the fifth lift of what they call the concrete ACON tower. This is the center core tower that ultimately has elevators that goes all the way up to the bridge that crosses over the tracks. Next slide. Here's the first of the four slabs. So this is right along the main adjacent stairwell and escalator that takes you from the ground level up to the first level. Next slide. And here's a kind of a step back, shows you the rest of the station house there. This will be the far end of the station house looking back towards the tracks. You can see the height of that tower that they've been building to connect over the tracks there in the background. Really gives you a sense of the size of the station and kind of the overall space. Next slide, please. And I'll pause right here and allow Juan Pablo to talk a little bit about what's going on in this picture.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. On June 28th, FH Passion sponsored an intern tour of the location where the new Damon and Lake station will be built. The tour highlighted their Passion Bridge program, which is a paid internship program for high school graduates transitioning to their first year of post-secondary education. FH Passion describes it as a first of its kind internship and organizational commitment to further engage students and fortify the pipeline of the construction industry. Interns received on-the-job training part-time for 6 weeks and work across multiple departments within the organization. Passion Bridge welcomes 6 CPS students from George Westinghouse College Prep and will provide hands-on experience for its inaugural class of high school graduate interns on one of CTA's critical transit projects. The tour was attended by CTA staff, CDOT staff, Alderman Walter Burnett, and the FH Passion project crew. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Bill.
Thank you. We can move on to our next project. This is our non-rev rail vehicle maintenance facility, very similar to Damon. A lot of the work's been going on inside the building where we've been building out the new pits, where the vehicles ultimately get maintained and cleaned, as well as all the sub-foundational piping and other things we need to do as part of that process. And we started pouring the floor, which is in a facility as sizable as this one is now no small undertaking. So we can move some of those photos. Here's from the interior progress camera view, so you can get a sense of that first floor pour, how sizable it is. Last month I showed you a photo of a lot of large equipment working into space, gave you a sense of the scale. And if you kind of think back to that, then you can get a sense of how big a floor this really is and how much concrete ultimately is there. This is the first third of the building. So next slide. Here is preparation for kind of that floor pour you saw in the first third, as well as looking back the other way now at the rest of the space. You can see some of those pits being excavated out and being ready to be prepared to be formed for themselves. Next slide. And here's an up close look at one of those pits. So here they have kind of the base rebar for that pit in place, the pedestals for where the rail ultimately gets mounted, and some of that now drainage is being put in underneath that before they pour that concrete. Next slide, please. This is our Canal Berry Damon substation upgrade project. Lots of work been going on both at Damon Berry as well as at Haymarket. We haven't seen a lot of Haymarket lately, so we can jump ahead to some photos. We talk about what's been going on. Here at Haymarket, they've started removing the old existing equipment, making space for the new equipment coming in. So as part of the process, you've seen on many of our substation, we phase in the change out of equipment. So this is the first set of what we call a lineup. It's a series of pieces of equipment that work together as a team to provide power to our trains. Ultimately, that piece of equipment is now being removed, creating space. They'll prep that space for the new equipment. In the upcoming months, you'll see that equipment being brought online. Haymarket ultimately becomes the power source that connects the canal tie house, which you'll see some exciting photos of, in the upcoming 6 months as that tie house gets installed online. Next slide. At Berry, it's pretty exciting. After we got our caissons in last month, they started putting in the sheeting so we can start digging down and building our full foundation for this building. It's been long awaited, and it's very exciting to see this progress here. So here you can see, we've seen this on many of the other projects. We vibrate down sheeting deep into the earth. That allows us then to dig back and ultimately dig the depth of the hole and form the concrete foundation we'll be using in the building itself. Next slide. And here we are at Damon. We're out of the ground there. We got steel in the air, and now we've got floors. So here, last month I showed you some of the plumbing work going on and the preparatory work for this floor pour. They now have poured in the concrete floors, and you can see it being smoothed out there in the far forward. Next slide, please. Going on to our Refresh and Renew program. You flip forward another one, please. Another one, please. We continue to progress with our 29 stations for the year, with 7 of the 29 completed. Most notably, the most recent one being Cicero and Howard. We've begun work at Sheridan, which is a very challenging station based on its age and complexity. And we'll be on Indiana and the Green Line shortly. On our bus turnaround program, we've done 5 of the 12, most recently working at 79th and Halsted and beginning work at 74th and Damon. Show you some photos of that progress. Here at Howard, so we have some vacant store frontage on Howard Avenue, actually underneath the viaducts there, as well as a concession space in there. And so versus having a papered up area, we worked with our comms and graphics teams to develop some historical graphics of the station in the area and some message around that we've worked on decals to install over the windows, which allows us to hide the space a little bit while it's vacant, but make it generally more appealing and more of an art space. Next slide. Here's another example of the space on Howard, the before after from that what was previously papered up kind of brown space to what is now the colored space. And here's our typical painted stairs view. And here at Cicero, so we often talk about that curb appeal, the walk up on the stations. So this is a vacated storefront over near Cicero on the Green Line in the station frontage. Here they painted the entire canopy of it. They cleaned up the window space, frosted them over a little bit. It makes it a little more the station itself as you walk up upon it a little more appealing. Next slide. And here is an auxiliary exit. So one of the things we've been trying to do on some of these auxiliary exits is remove kind of space that wasn't necessary at the street level that made it more congested or more unwelcoming ultimately. And so here we removed a section that was a vertical walkout from the stairwell. It wasn't ideal either. In some cases, it created kind of a trap spot for customers coming down the stairs, this emergency exit at later at night. And so this allowed it to be a little more open, both for the view lines as well as just for the general traffic on the street. Next slide. Here's some shots from the bus turnaround, general cleanup of the painting, all the ballards, curb lines. Next slide. Here's some curb repair. So one of the big things we do in this program is we do a lot of concrete replacement, curbs, patchwork, and so you can see that here as well as the touched up painting. And the board at this meeting approved 2 new contracts. So we're very, very excited to go into construction at the beginning of next year, but I wanted to share some of the renderings from those contracts. So you won't hear about them being regularly reported till next year, but I did want to show you kind of what the look is. So this is the Austin Green Lines ASAP project. This is the second project moving into construction phase in our phase 1 program. The first one being Racine Station, our Congress program. So here you can see the exterior of the station frontage. And one of the really important aspects of the ASAP program is not only just dealing with the accessibility point at the station itself, but also the path of travel to the station. So Austin's a prime example of that. Is that the station actually was a series of steps up from the curb line. And so we actually do a massive resloping of the frontage of the station and the public way to be able to create a ramp up towards the sidewalk and then ultimately into the station. So here you can see that new storefront and the build out to be able to make that ramp. Next slide, please. Here you kind of get a different angle of view. So this is directly on the corner where you actually be entering from the street and being able to get access to that station. Next slide. Here's a little bit pulled back. You can see that kind of landscape, but you can also see the elevator tower in the background. Next slide. And here's a night view of this is the reconditioned storefront. It has an extension build out there as well as landscaping and other portions. Next slide. This is the second project the board considered today for approval. So this is kind of unique for us. This is a true bridge. We have many miles of structure. But this is actually a bridge that goes over the I-90 expressway near Harlem on the Blue Line, where we actually allow our buses to traverse from the public way to our center station for loading, and then back across the highway again. So this is a reconstruction of those bridge elements for a new bridge canopy, new surface area, as well as some facade work and a new bathroom for the bus operators. Next slide. And here you can see those new comfort facilities, as well as some of the striping and accessible features for those bus islands that aren't currently available today. So we will be introducing a new project this month for reporting on, as President Carter mentioned in his remarks. We are entering into the phase 1 rebuild of the Forest Park branch. This is actually 2 projects together. The first of which is the track project, which will be rebuilding the track about 1.5 miles between the edge of the Dearborn subway, just east of Halsted, all the way out to Illinois Medical District near Damon. It will eliminate about 15,000 feet of slow zone and improve ride quality for our customers, as well as reduce ride times by about 2 minutes. You can flip forward another slide. The contractor for this is Kiewit Infrastructure. Kiewit has done a lot of work for us, especially a lot of track work. They will be doing all the track work as well as all the sub-foundational work for the Racine Station ASAP project, which is the second contract in our phase 1 program, as well as building a new traction power substation at Morgan and doing all the sub-foundational work for that traction power substation. It's a really important part of this program as we upgrade the power systems in this branch for the new modern fleet to be able to use them. And with this, we're going to talk a little bit in detail about an upcoming major line cut we have, all the communications work we've done and to get our customers prepared for that, as well as we often talk about the importance of not what we build, but how we choose to build it. And JP is going to highlight some of the unique contracting opportunities we've done in this program. Next slide, please.
Thanks again, Bill. Directors, as you can see from the chart on the screen, the track improvement contract is not the first time we had strong DBE participation on this project. Through infrastructure's determined use of the SPE GEC contract, we had DBE firms performing the early survey and geotechnical work. We also assessed aggressive goals on the full design packages, the construction management, and construction contracts. Based on the commitments so far, we have 29.17% DBE participation. Next slide, please. The project has strong workforce commitments as well. I would like to highlight that the construction management contract was the first professional services contract to include a workforce goal. And as far as we've seen, this is the first time it's been done in the industry. 10% of the contract hours will need to be worked by residents of economically disadvantaged areas, or EDAs. On the construction contracts, we have aggressive goals for careers opportunity, which includes individuals enrolled in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, and Section 3 workers, a goal for union apprentices, and our service area EDA goal, which is for residents within the CTA service area living in zip codes with a median household income of $45,000 or less. Next slide, please. As part of their commitments on this contract, Kiewit Construction hosted an on-site training event on June 27th for those interested in joining their team on the Forest Park Track Improvement Project. Participants were individuals who had completed employee interest forms during various outreach events attended by Kiewit staff over the past few months, including CTA events. Training began in the project trailer, during which over 30 attendees were presented with construction safety and best practices in the field. Attendees were then given an overview of the track improvement project and then guided through a series of outdoor workstations that covered track work, construction tools, loading and unloading a trailer, and construction vehicle safety. Attendees spent approximately 20 minutes at each station, where they were provided an overview as well as best practices pertaining to their respective stations. They were also permitted to use the tools and get into the machinery for hands-on experience. Attendees were engaged and many displayed prior construction experience. So Kiewit was excited to engage with this rich candidate pool, and they'll all have an opportunity to compete for positions on the track improvement project. The event wrapped up with a lunch and learn with the Latino Workers Safety Center, the Laborers Union, and Hire 360. In this picture, you can see the trainer from Kiewit demonstrating how to use a tool to lift track ties. 3 of diversity programs, 1 Summer Chicago interns joined us, and don't worry, they were not driving the cranes around the yard. With that, I'll hand it over to Brian Steele.
Thank you, JP. Mr. Chairman, directors, good morning. Brian Steele, Vice President of Communications. As has been stated, the Forest Park Branch rebuild is one of the largest CTA capital projects in many years. And as such, it requires and really deserves an extensive, multifaceted outreach campaign to reach the many constituencies that will be impacted. That includes not just our customers, but also community leaders, the entities in the project footprint, elected officials, and other stakeholders. So for this project, we are drawing on the successful playbooks that we've used on previous large-scale construction projects like the Red Line South reconstruction and like the Red and Purple modernization. But we're not just using the same playbooks. We've expanded and tailored the playbook for this Forest Park project to cover more bases and to really even better target some of these constituencies. As you can see, one of the first things that we did when we announced the campaign a little over a week ago was launch a dedicated project webpage. It has a great amount of service information. It has maps outlining the various impacts to service and the alternative service options, which we'll hear more about in a moment. And it will be a dynamic website that we will update at the various project milestones. Next slide, please. We've also developed a large suite of informational materials. We have a one sheet that provides a project overview. We have a brochure that we're handing out to customers. We have maps showing the service impacts and the alternative service options. So really, we've developed a bunch of different materials that are targeted to different aspects of the project. Next slide, please. Here's a couple of those maps. It might be a little bit hard to see, but the map on the left, to give you an idea of how we've customized this, the map on the left shows the many north-south bus routes that customers can use to connect to the green and pink lines, which are going to serve as some of the alternatives to the blue line. The map on the right side, again, might be hard to see some of the details, but it maps out the shuttle bus service that we'll be offering for the first part of the project. The next slide, please. Customers will also see visible information even before they enter the station. Sandwich boards are something that we've used to great success throughout a lot of our large-scale projects. They're hard to miss. As you're entering the station, they capture your attention, and they will have information that, again, is updated as each phase of the project continues. Next slide, please. If you've been on the blue line lately, you have certainly seen these customer alerts. We have placed these alerts along both branches of the blue line. So not just the Forest Park branch, but the O'Hare branch as well, because customers along that branch certainly could see some of the service impacts or could be traveling between the branches. So these are in rail stations, they are on rail cars, and we are also placing them, in fact, most of them are in place already, on buses that run on routes that serve the blue line. Next slide, please. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Molly Poppy, to provide some more information about the outreach.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon. I'm Molly Poppy. I am the Chief Innovation Officer for CTA. And as Brian was mentioning, there's a host of different collateral and different outreach and engagement activities that we will be doing in order to connect with the riders all along the Forest Park branch, both educate them on the shuttle buses that will be available to them to supplement where stations will be closed, but then also help to connect the riders with alternatives. Can you go next slide for me? So as part of the work that we're doing for the Forest Park branch line cut and the outreach that we're doing, we actually have developed a customer segmentation. So we've been looking at the various riders all along the line and understanding where are they ending. So what's their origin destination, and how can we help to educate them on alternatives that would make the most sense for them. So we have a host of different segmentations here. The first segmentation is an emphasis on Pink Line. So it should be noted that there's about 73% of riders who board the Forest Park Blue Line before IMD actually ride past UIC Halsted. So they're riding into the loop or beyond the loop to other lines. And so that means that there's a lot of CTA service that is a great alternative for them. So on the Pink Line here, you can see we're going to be emphasizing for customers who are heading into the loop, individuals who are boarding typically board at the Cicero Blue Line stop, encouraging them to start to transition over to that Pink Line. The Pink Line is going to take them into the loop as well. It's going to be an easy sort of alternative for them versus trying to continue on the Blue Line and deal with the line cut and the bus shuttle. Next slide for me. Same thing, a different customer segmentation would be the green is encouraging Forest Park riders to transition to the Green Line. So those will be individuals that board typically at the Forest Park, Blue Line, Harlem, Oak Park, Austin. Those individuals, you can easily take one of our CTA buses or a PACE bus to that Green Line and head into the loop on the Green Line versus going through the line cut and the bus shuttle. Next slide. The next group of people, and Brian showed this slide previously, these are those individuals that typically they board closer to the line cut. So they board around Western and IMD. They may ride through into the loop, or they may stop somewhere along the way. So we'll be sending them information to communicate with them about the bus shuttle is probably going to be the best option for them. Next slide. And then the last is those individuals on the O'Hare branch. While they may not directly be impacted by the Forest Park line cut, so they're not necessarily having to deal with a bus shuttle or anything like that, but they may be impacted in the sense that there's going to be longer wait times. We're going to see scheduled headways along the Blue Line for the length of the line to go from about a 5 to 7 minute scheduled headway. That's going to expand up to about a 10-minute scheduled headway. And so we're sending direct communications to O'Hare branch riders to allow to encourage them to allow more time during their commute. And we're also working with our partners at Metra to talk about how can we market the parallel service that Metra provides on the west and northwest sides to relieve some of that peak hour congestion that we see on the Blue Line. And I would note, as part of all of these activities and all of the communication that we're having with customers, it's not just enough to tell them about the alternative and sort of verbally encourage them. We want to make it financially encouraging as well for them to take an alternative. So we will be offering a reduced fare along the Blue Line on Forest Park, along the Green Line on that Western branch, and on the Pink Line on the Western branch. Everything sort of west of Ashland is going to be reduced rate of fares at 50%. And then to further encourage that connection, that going to the alternative of the Pink and Green lines from the Blue Line Forest Park, we are going to make all of the stops, those bus stops between Green and Pink on those northbound bus routes free. So customers really are going to be encouraged to take those alternatives, both because it's going to be a little bit faster for them. They're going to avoid some of the transitioning from the Blue Line to a bus shuttle back to a train. So by encouraging them to take those alternatives, but again, we're also going to try to make it financially encouraging for them as well by reducing the fares at rail stations west of Ashland, and then also making those fares free on bus routes, those north-south bus routes, making those free as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bill Mooney to close us out.
Thank you, Molly. So in advance of this line cut, we've actually been doing a ton of work out there to get ready as much as we can advance while service is still running. So a couple areas that I want to highlight for you, some updated construction photos for this month. This is called the Racine Siding. It's an area that we actually have adjacent to the revenue tracks. It allows us to store work equipment that we use to maintain both the subways and the area on the right of way. We took this out of service about a month ago and they began demolition and clearing of this area. Here you can see some of that demolition of the existing tracks in that area. Next slide, please. Here you can actually see the dig out already of that area. So this is actually some of the excavation work we're doing in advance of the major track package. This is an exceptionally wide right of way and area track. So we have room actually for as many as 5 or 6 tracks in some areas. And so here we actually have installed a temporary fence along the existing active right of way. And that allows them to work during daylight hours and behind that fence line while we're still running trains and advancing this. So that's a really important portion of this because this is actually where all the drainage for the track goes in, as well as the communication network. So a huge portion of the prep work is getting that drainage in before the major line cut, as well as getting out as many of the existing spoils, so the old dirt and stone as possible. So here you see some of the excavation in progress. Next slide. And what's interesting about this too is they're accessing the right of way through stair towers off the bridge deck. So these are actually locked and secured, and they get them off the major thoroughways that goes down directly into that fenced in area so that they can go to and from without interrupting train service at all. Next slide. And with that, we'll move on to the Red Purple Modernization Project. We can move forward a slide, please. Very, very busy last month. So we are pushing very quickly to stage B in the Lawrence Bryn Mawr area, as well as advancing our the Red Purple bypass area to its next phase and what we call North Main Line 3. Most of that has been focused on the RPB area, on getting the track work, the special work installed. This is what will facilitate movement between various tracks in that corridor. On the Lawrence Bryn Mawr area, we are finalizing all the last minute items we need to get the tracks ready for their use in revenue service, which is really about signal commissioning and power commissioning at this point. And that CSI improvements corridor wide is really going into effect with this phase. Next slide. So here's some of the work in progress. So this is down at the Red Purple bypass area. So you've seen as we're preparing individual tracks, this is now where those tracks merge together. This is what we historically have called the Clark Junction area, which allows us to facilitate train movement from the red line, the purple line, and the brown line together. We uncoupled a section of that by putting the flyover in there, but there's still the need to have flexibility to be able to move between the tracks between the other lines. So here you see some of that special work, a very complicated installation of that track work in concrete. Next slide. And up on the Lawrence Bryn Mawr stretch, we're coming to the finish line. So here is the logos going up on the 10th Bryn Mawr station. I've shown you progress on that station over the last couple of months. So here they are doing some of those finishing touches. Next slide. Here's similar installations up at Argyle. So while we are getting ready for that phase change, these signs were installed. They were covered back up till the night of the actual change. Next slide. Here's some of the final work up at track level. This is called rail grinding. A few years ago, I showed you actually a video of a rail grinder in process on the Green Line where we did some track work there. This actually, they take a series of heavy kind of stones and recut the head of the rail. In this case, this rail has been sitting out of service for a very, very long time. It was very well rusted over. And so they brought out a rail grinder to smooth back out that surface for those first trains to use. Next slide. And here is the installation of the engineered barrier. So this is an important part of the phasing here. So we actually installed visual barrier the whole length of the new structure. So while we're building on the other side of it, it doesn't become disruptive to operators as they're operating. Next slide. And we're very excited to move into stage B. So on July 28th, we will actually go through the phase change. We'll be running on the new structure. And so between Thorndale and Wilson, we'll be on the entirely new structure. We'll be off of the last segments of that old structure, and they will begin the demolition and rebuilding of that section, as well as the start of the new stations. Phase B will be where we build all the brand new stations for Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr. And while we're in that phase, we will have 2 new temp stations, one at Argyle and one at Bryn Mawr, or it's really 2 at Argyle and 1 at Bryn Mawr that will facilitate riders' use during that phase. Again, this will be July 28th when we cut over and start using that new track structure. Move forward. And our outreach activities have been ramped up as well in the last month. So we did a series of meetings with our artists. The board had recently awarded to. So we did a bunch of public meetings where we introduced the artist community, got the artists talked about the type of mediums they use, their theories behind their artworks, the things they like to do. They got some feedback from the community about the things the community would like to see in the artwork. We did a series of public meetings for Bryn Mawr and Berwyn, and then for Argyle and Lawrence. Separate from that, we did a series of outreach meetings for the stage B construction for the public, where we went through how the phasing is going to work, what activities will be occurring in the actual construction over the next 2 years, as well as how the service and what will change for them as a commuter. We also have continued to do ongoing coordination with the FTA PMOC. This is the consultant that the FTA uses to oversee projects such as RPM that have federal dollars associated with them. They came out with representatives of TIFIA to do a tour of the project site in late May. And we've had a series of press events and press announcements around stage B as well. Some still coming in the weeks ahead as we have a really a robust outreach schedule that will be touching our customers and making sure they're aware of that phase change and what's going to be going on in the community in the upcoming weeks. And with that, I'll turn it over to Juan Pablo to talk a little bit about DB and workforce.
Thanks again, Bill. We continue to meet with the contractor monthly to discuss DB and workforce outreach and compliance. And we communicate any subcontracting and workforce opportunities out to the community to make sure that they're aware of them. As of June 30th, DBEs have been awarded over $241 million between the design and construction packages on RPM Phase 1. These dollars have been awarded to 96 unique DBE firms, 40 of which are new to CTA. On the workforce side, as of the end of June, 1,891 unique individuals have worked over 1.3 million labor hours and earned over $77 million. Next, I'd like to show you the next installment in our monthly video series, in which we highlight the RPM project's ambitious workforce and DBE inclusion programs. Today, you will hear from Victoria Anderson, an electrician apprentice with Mead, which is a subcontractor on the RPM project. It is an honor to share these stories on how CTA and RPM has improved the lives of Chicagoans and their families. Thank you.
My name is Victoria Anderson. I am a third level apprentice for Mead Electric through Local 9, and I work here in the warehouse for the CTA RPM project. I was in the service industry for, I think it was like 10 years. And then in 2019, I realized that I really wasn't excited about depending on people's kindness to pay my bills. So I kind of got out of that in January of 2020. That was the last time I worked in the service industry. And then COVID happened. So then I had to really reassess exactly what it was that I had to do. So it was at that point that the apprenticeship had opened up, and like my dad was a Local 9 journeyman. So he suggested going and get my Class A CDL so that I could try out for the union, and I did. As a woman, I didn't know that this would be a career path for me. I wasn't sure how rough the job would be, but now that I've gotten into it, I have been in love with it. I love going to work every day. Even the bad days, I'm like, it's not that bad, it'll be okay. Like, and there's just so much to learn. And I have friends who are older who have younger daughters that, you know, they're high school age. They're getting ready to figure out what their careers are, like, or if they should go to college. And I do talk to them. I do kind of like influence a little bit of them. Like, have you ever thought of the trades? Or like some of them in dumb shop classes, I was like, have you ever thought about continuing on with that? I'm like, because there's good money, there's minimal debt. Like, why not try it out? You know, it's just, it's something that's like, it has provided so much for me and like my family that I kind of want it for a lot of different people, you know? We started out at $22 an hour, but the 22 is just like your base pay. And then above that is like where you have all your benefits. So it's after like the first 3 months that you work, you start to get like your health benefits. And pretty much from the get-go, they start putting into like a 401k for you, which is super awesome because somebody my age, I'm 32. I've never had a retirement before. I had no plan for retirement. So you start there, and then each time that you hit your 1,000 hours and like you go to school, you get a raise. So right now I'm a T3, I make $32 an hour, and I still, you know, have great benefits and, you know, the pension and everything like that, pension, 401k. And I'm so glad I made this choice. I'm so happy I went into this. I didn't know at first, but I'm honestly so excited that I made this choice. And what's really nice is that my husband and I were actually able to put an offer in a house for the first time, which is super awesome because I didn't think I'd be able to do that anytime soon.
That concludes the portion of my report. Back to you, Bill.
Mr. Chairman, directors, we'll be glad to take any questions on any portion of this report today.
Questions for Mr. Mooney or Mr. Branzo?
Director Ja?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Ortiz?
Thank you. No.
Director Jakes?
Questions?
Director Miller?
No question.
There are no questions, Chairman Barclay.
Thank you. Before we conclude this meeting, I know we have two public commenters who were running a little bit late, and but they're here. So I think that we're going to allow them to have their remarks at this.
Mr. Chairman, we have present in the boardroom, Bill Morton and Trudy Leong. I am going to remind the presenters that you have 3 minutes to speak and that you should not direct your comments to anyone in particular. Mr. Morton?
Thank you to the chair and the board for this opportunity for public comments. I'm the president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce for 14 years. I use the CTA, lifelong Chicagoan. We're very concerned about the RPM's future phases, specifically at the Jarvis and the Morse Red Line stations as part of the Thorndale North phase. Our issues are of ADA accessibility. Installing elevators at Jarvis and Morse stations are our top concerns of our community and my constituents. During the 2012 renovations of Jarvis and Morse stations, the streets were completely closed down and we did not receive any elevators for our people with disabilities, the elderly, and families with strollers. We believe that this project in 2012 represented a massive construction in which the federal government requires the CTA to make the stations 100% accessible, yet no elevators in 2012. ADA accessibility is not only the right thing to do, but it's mandatory. We need to give access to the people who never had access to the rail. We briefly discussed this issue at the board meeting last month, and Chamber Administrator Trudy Leong and I met with the Director of RPM, Government and Community Relations, Jeff Wilson, on the 20th. Jeff explained that there is no ETA for ADA accessibility at Jarvis and Morse because the funding formula has not been started yet, and we can't ask the federal government for money until the engineering scope is completed. We need an engineering scope to find exactly where we need, what we need to do in regards to making the platforms wider to accommodate the elevators as well as for longer trains. It should be the top priority for the CTA as well as the city of Chicago to make these stations 100% accessible to the people with mobility issues as well as our aging community. These are a significant portion of our community and customers for the CTA and will provide future ridership growth in Rogers Park. I'm speaking on behalf of my constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, board, for having us speak on behalf of our constituents about some of our concerns in the neighborhood of Rogers Park. My name is Trudy Leong. I am the administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce in the neighborhood of Rogers Park. We are concerned about some issues at the Howard Red Line Station parking garage. Could you please address the issues of crumbling infrastructure on the top floor and investigate whether it's structurally sound? And there are also a lot of problems with individuals using the Howard Red Line Station as a public restroom. There was an investigation, a news report about that on CBS recently on April 11th of this year. Among the problems are that parts of the top floor seem to be crumbling and closed down. And the staircase to the top level is blocked off by chains. Other areas are sectioned off by several levels of caution tape. There is defecation behind the dumpster on the first floor and urinating in the staircase and elevators as well. At night, people loiter on the top level. Is the CTA responsible for the security for the parking structure, or is it a private firm? I would also like to mention that how much I learned and enjoyed my meeting with Jeff Wilson of the Chicago Transit Authority. He's the director, RPM, Government and Community Relations. We had the meeting on June 20th, and I thank the board for recommending that we have that meeting with Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from the board to?
I just have a question. I'm sorry, is it, no?
Yes.
No, did you say it is Howard and?
Howard, it's the Howard, the Red Line Station, and then the parking garage is part of the Gateway Center complex. So we are not sure whether it is the Gateway Center that is responsible for the maintenance and oversight of the parking structure, or if it's the CTA.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Morton, Bill Morton. Bill Morton.
Morton.
Yes.
Okay, and you said the Jarvis does not have an elevator, or?
Jarvis Station does not have an elevator. It's not ADA accessible. And nor is the Morse Station, Red Line Station in Rogers Park in 49th Ward.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you for coming. Appreciate your comments and pass those on to President's office. Thank you. Our final order of business is new business. Georgette, is there any new business?
No.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting of July 12th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Ortiz and seconded by Director Ja. We'll take a roll call vote to adjourn the meeting. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz? Yes. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes,
The motion to adjourn the meeting passes.
thank you.